Welcome back to Better Choice Homestead. My name is Kelly and we are in my kitchen today. I am going to be making some Pop-Tarts, some homemade Pop-Tarts, using some jams and some pie fillings that I have preserved in years past to get them used up while I have family in town. I'm mostly going to be doing a voiceover on this video because there are a lot of people in my house, including some young kids who are pretty vocal. So right now everybody's quiet. I'm going to get this intro done. I've just done the pie crust and that is chilling in the fridge, but I'm going to show you how I made that and then we're just going to walk through the rest of the steps. But again, like I said, it'll mostly be a voiceover. But I'll come back and wrap up when I can. I do want to put a little disclaimer at the beginning of this video. I am sporting some bling on my fingers. Still have my family here, which is why we're making these sweet treats. And in all the chaos and all the excitement and all the kiddos running around, I ended up getting my 3 fingers caught into a panel garage door as the garage door closed. I broke the tip of this finger. These ones are questionable, not 100% sure those are broken, but this one for sure showed a break on the x-ray. So I'll be wearing these for a while. I can take them off. It's just I have to be very, very careful. So that's why you're going to be seeing these in the video. Let's get making some sweet treats. So I'm going to start by making the dough. I'm going to be using just some organic unbleached white flour. And I'm looking for 290 grams or about 2 1/4 cups. To the flour, we're going to be adding some sugar. I'm just using granulated sugar. I'm looking for 65 grams or about 1/4 cup plus a tablespoon. To our dry ingredients, I am adding 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon and 1 teaspoon of salt. I'm pouring all of the dry ingredients into my food processor, and I'm just going to be pulsing this a few times just to get everything mixed well through. Now we're moving on to the butter. We are going to be using 277 grams or 2 sticks of butter. You don't want to pull your butter out of the refrigerator until you're ready to use it. When you're making pastry, you want your butter cold. And that's because if it's cold when it goes into the oven, as it heats up in the oven, it's going to create steam, and that steam is going to create little air pockets in your dough, and that's what's going to give your pastry that flaky feel and texture. So I'm taking cold butter and I am cubing it up into small pieces, and then we will put this into the food processor. And the reason we want it cold going into the food processor is we do not want it to melt as the blades of the food processor are creating warmth in the machine. So we want to make sure our butter is not melted at all by the time it goes into the oven. And I am going to be running this through the food processor on pulse. Again, we don't want it melted. We do not want this at all creamy in here. We want it chopped up into bits. So that is why we're going to pulse rather than run the machine, for a steady stream. And I'm going to show you here in just a second what that looks like after the butter has been pulsed in. It's pea-sized. You don't have any big clumps anywhere. It's free-flowing. Okay, now we're going to do our wet ingredients. We are going to start with cold water. I've got a bowl with some ice in it, and I'm going to be pulling from that. A total of 100 grams or about 1/4 cup plus 3 teaspoons. And to that water, I am going to be adding some honey, just a little bit, about 1/2 teaspoon total. Now I'm gonna pour the wet ingredients or the liquid into the dry ingredients in the food processor. I don't have my camera angled very well here, but I'm just gonna be pouring it down the little spout in the lid as I pulse this. And the reason that you want to use ice cold water is, again, all about the butter. We do not want any warmth in there that is going to melt those little pea-sized particles of cold butter. And I'm just pulsing here until I see dough starting to form. I don't want to over mix it. I'm going to stop as soon as I see everything incorporated looking like dough. And now that we have our dough, I am going to be pouring it out of the food processor onto my work surface. But first, I'm going to lightly flour the work surface so the dough doesn't stick. And you can see here that this is not a formed dough ball. We don't want it to be a formed dough ball. We're not going to be kneading this. We want that butter to remain as little pea-sized shapes in the dough. If you were to over knead this, you're going to just melt your butter. So I am just bringing the dough together. I'm going to form it into kind of a ball shape, and then I'm going to flatten it out to about an inch. Then I'm going to fold it over 3 times, flattening each time, not kneading. And then I'm going to get this wrapped in plastic and put it back in the refrigerator. And the refrigerator step, again, is about the butter, setting it back up so it can do its thing with the release of steam in the oven to create those flaky layers in the pastry. And it's going to go into the refrigerator for 30 to 60 minutes before we are ready to roll this out and make the pastries. And I'm using my kitchen bench scraper to just lift it off the board and onto the plastic. A little awkward with these darn finger splints, but I'm getting the job done, even though it might look a little ridiculous. After about an hour with the dough being in the fridge, we are ready to get that rolled out. So I am currently flouring my work surface. But I would like to mention that my niece Amanda, I've mentioned this in another video, she does my thumbnails, and I usually send her the pictures, and she works magic, because I'm not a photographer, to get my thumbnails done for me. But since she is here, she wanted to do some photos for me, and you're going to see her camera on and off on the right hand side of the screen. And I'm actually going to put the photos of what she's taking as you see that camera. She is amazing with photography. She's never done food photography before, but wait until you see these pictures. Okay, what I'm doing here is dividing the dough because we are going to be making 2 long rectangle strips of dough. The 2 are going to be, the top and the bottom of the pastry. I'm going to be rolling them out. The dough is going to be rolled out to about 1/4 of an inch thick, and I'm looking for 3 or 4 inches wide on each of these rectangles. All right, for this clip, she had me take my splints off for better photos. She's going to take some amazing pictures here. They are for my future website. I own the ABC Homestead domain and just need to figure out how to do that in my spare time. She's actually going to cross-post this video on her photography Facebook page, which is Amanda Marie's Photography. She's out of Loveland, Colorado. And I would love it if you guys would comment on the pictures for her. They are truly incredible. All right, I have my 2 strips of pastry rolled out, roughly the same size. One is going to be for the top, one is going to be for the bottom. We are using some jam here. Everybody chose the same flavor. That makes it really easy. I'm just using a tablespoon to get each scoop about 1.5 inches apart on the pastry. And I'm just going to do that all the way down the length of one of these. The next step is to take the top layer of pastry and lay it gently over the top of the bottom. You want to try to line up the edges as best you can. And then I'm going to be going around the outside and between each of the filling drops and just press down. Now I've got a little ravioli cutter and I'm just squaring this off and also cutting in between, evenly in between each of the filling drops. You can use a pizza cutter, you can use a knife, you can use a spatula, whatever you have to cut. I like using the ravioli cutter because it's ridged and it does help seal that dough. Now I'm just going to use a fork and go along all 4 edges of each of these pastries with the back of the fork and just push down. So making some ridges and also getting that dough sealed so that we don't lose our filling during the cooking process. I'm going to take each pastry and put it onto the baking sheet that's lined with parchment paper. I'm, making sure that they're separated, but they're not going to, puff or spread out. So you just need them separated a little bit. I'm taking the extra dough to make 1 more pastry. So I'm just going to roll that out into 1 strip and then put the filling towards one side of it and then just fold it over. Now it's time to make the egg wash to brush over the top of the pastries. For the egg wash, you want to use 1 egg and 2 teaspoons of water, just, mixed up really well. I am choosing to use some of my freeze-dried whole eggs for this, and I am doing a total of 1 tablespoon of egg powder to 3 tablespoons of water. Works beautifully if you have freeze-dried eggs available. And after just using a fork to whip this up into a complete liquid, I'm just going to use a pastry brush and brush over the top of each one. And I'm going to make sure that I do the edges as well. These are ready to bake in a preheated 375-degree oven on the middle rack, and they will bake for 25 to 30 minutes. While those are in the oven, I'm going to go ahead and make the glaze. The glaze takes 158 grams of powdered sugar. That's about 1.5 cups, a teaspoon of vanilla, and 2 to 3 tablespoons of milk, as well as 22 grams or 1 tablespoon of corn syrup. These came out amazing. They look incredible. They smell delicious. I'm being a little bit quiet. All of the kids here who are visiting are in their rooms having quiet time and or a nap. So back on video with audio here. So all I need to do now is put the icing that I made on top. These have cooled down for about 10 minutes. You don't want them scorching hot when you put this on, because this then will just melt and run all over. It's not going to stay on top of the Pop-Tarts. And they took 24 minutes in my oven, and I wanted to get them out because I saw this crust burning. So everybody's oven temperature is going to vary just a little bit. So let's go ahead and get these frosted. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to sprinkle some of my freeze-dried fruit powder over the top. I don't have the candy sprinkles. I don't like the candy sprinkles. I don't have any in the house, but I do have freeze-dried fruit powder. So everybody chose to use my raspberry mango jam as filling for these. I gave them options of apple, peach, blueberry, cherry, or the raspberry mango, and they all chose the raspberry mango. That was a big hit. That was some jam I made last year, and I still have quite a bit of it left, so happy to use that up on these. And I did put Caro syrup in this icing because that is going to help it harden and stay in place. Let's just drizzle some on here. I'm a little awkward with these finger splints on. This is looking good though. I love baking and making sweet treats, but without guests, I mean, it's not something that we eat a whole lot of. So I'm taking advantage of the kids being here. And I actually pulled out and dusted off another recipe, and that is going to use up some of my apple pie filling. I did a bunch of apple pie fillings last year or the year before. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before. And we haven't used any of it. So I am going to be making some apple pie egg rolls, and that is going to be amazing. So hopefully I'll be able to video that as well. I have a lot of icing left here. I am going to go ahead and just add a little bit more, because who doesn't love icing on their Pop-Tarts? Although one of my guests said it looks more like a strudel. That's fine. You can call it a strudel. Call it whatever you like, as long as you like it and eat it. Next time I make these, I'm going to cut the time down by 2 minutes. So I did them for 24. Next time I'll check them at 20 and probably pull them at 22 because they are just a little brown. And you can tell that with the corn syrup in here, which is not high fructose corn syrup, it's just corn syrup, that it is really a thicker glaze and staying on nicely. The main sweetener in corn syrup is glucose versus high fructose corn syrup, which is fructose. All right, let's get these sprinkled with, I think some strawberry powder, since it's a raspberry filling. So I'm using some of my pureed farm fresh strawberries that I did in the Vitamix and then freeze dried. This is a beautiful, flavorful, amazing powder that you can use to bake with, like I'm doing right now. You can put it in things like cake or cupcakes. It has phenomenal flavor. So rather than adding sprinkles, we're going to add some dried fruit that has concentrated flavor from being freeze dried, so it tastes like candy. And the icing is going to help it just stick on there. All right, let me get these plated up. Right, here we go. And once this icing cools down completely, I will be able to stack these. Using the corn syrup and the icing is going to make that super hard so they can be stacked together, and you can even throw them in the freezer and heat them up later. We'll give these a taste test. All right, Pop-Tarts are ready, and I've got a little special guest here who's going to give them a try for the taste test on my behalf. You ready?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead and take a bite. Tell me what you think.
Mm-hmm.
Good?
Mm-hmm. Very good.
Good. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me here in my kitchen. My name is Kelly. You are at A Better Choice Homestead, and I do hope you come back and visit again soon. I want to give a special shout out to my niece Amanda for these amazing photos. She's a lifestyle photographer with 3 years experience under her belt, but this is her first time photographing food, and I just think that she did great. Please feel free to check out her social media pages. Drop her a comment in the comment section down below. She would surely appreciate that.